Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to HTV. I have the opportunity of giving this class to some of the H students here in Jerusalem, in the H World Center, right opposite the Kotel. And it's very exciting to be able to learn together with everyone today. And generally, we speak in our class about relationships, how to have good relationships, how to have successful relationships, how to grow in relationships, how to become one with another person. And today, I'd like to focus on something a little bit different. And that is that we have lots of books, lots of seminars, lots of classes about relationships. We also have lots of books, classes, seminars about educating children. And what I'd like to focus on today is where the two, relationships and educating children, overlap. The point of overlap where the two areas fuse together. And let's start with a simple example. And then afterwards, we'll get a little more practical. Okay, picture the scene. It's early in the morning. You have to get your kids off to school. So the husband, the wife, you and your spouse are helping out. You're gonna try to help get all the kids off to school, get their meals ready, get their backpacks ready, whatever they need, get them dressed. You're gonna get them going. And you take a moment of a break, maybe to check some messages, answer an email, whatever it is. And your spouse, who was in the middle of getting things going, start all of a sudden falling behind. And they're getting nervous and they're getting upset. They're getting upset. You just messed them up. They were supposed to go ahead and help you out. You were supposed to help out, and your spouse now is behind, and the bus is coming, and we're in a lot of trouble. So what might happen? There's a lot of resentment. There might be an exchange of some loud words, critical words even, from your spouse to you, saying, like, where were you? I was waiting for you. Why do you always get distracted? And it could be very, very intense. I mean, you and your spouse are also trying to get ready to go to work or wherever you're going for the rest of the day. So it's a very intense time. And there could be an exchange of some negativity. When your kids observe that and then go off to school with that feeling, with that atmosphere in the home, it's very difficult for them to then be able to succeed over the course of their day in school. Right? We can picture ourselves back in the day. We're sitting in class and we start to remember. We start to review the scenes of the morning, of the mother and the father yelling at each other, being upset at each other, the tension that exists between them. And then they're distracted in a negative way. They obviously don't feel good. And then to go ahead and be able to learn and to be educated by the teacher is almost impossible. So in order for our children to be able to be influenced, they must be in an environment, in an atmosphere that's healthy, that's calm, that's inviting. Flip it to the end of school. People had a long day. So your child had a long day of school and he comes home. He wants to be in a relaxed, happy atmosphere. If there's criticism, if there's tension between his parents at home, they're not going to want to be there. Who wants to be in a home that's tense, that you could feel it in the, the air is thick? No one wants to be there. So they're not going to want to be home. They're going to opt to go to other people's houses. They're going to opt to hang out in parks and other places. And the ability for the parent to influence in the home is almost going to be zero. And therefore, this part is clear that the environment, the atmosphere, the energy of the dynamic between the parents in the home create the bedrock for any type of influence, whether it's influence from a teacher or whether it's influence from you, to be able to get going. And therefore, parents have to be extra careful. Again, you could have your own class and own seminar on relationships to learn how to work things out between you, but you have to be extra careful that around the kids, the energy that's created between any exchange, any interactions between husband and wife are more than perfect in order to enable the children to be able to go ahead and be influenced. Okay, but now let's get a little bit more specific and show how our influence could be enormous based on our shalom bayit, based on our relationships with our spouse. The Hebrew word for influence is mashpia. Mashpia. Mashpia comes from the root shipua. Shipua is an incline. There, an incline. Okay, what happens on an incline? When we think about inclines, we think about how things just roll down the incline, right? You don't have to take a ball and throw it down an incline. You put it on the top and it just comes right down. You put water on the top of an incline and it just rolls down very, very easily. Why is the root of the word mashpia, which means to influence, the same as the word shipua? As we've discussed many times, in the Hebrew language, the holy Lashon HaKodesh, there's no two words that have the same letters, have the same root, that don't have a shared meaning in its core. So what's the shared meaning between influencing and incline? Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky answers that the greatest way of influence, and maybe even the only way of influence, is something that naturally rolls down and pours from the one that's influencing. Meaning, education is not just about information. What did I learn today? How much did I get on my test? How much knowledge did I get? That's not what it's about. A major part, that's true, you're educated when you get that. But the major part of growth of education comes from the influence, from observing the actions of other people. When I see someone act in an honest way, whether the person trying to teach me the character trait of honesty or not is irrelevant. I am influenced and I want to become honest. I want to be that way. And therefore, just like the water naturally rolls down the incline, so too, when we want to influence someone, the way we act and the way that the one we're trying to influence observes the way we act is going to be the greatest level of impact and influence that is going to occur. And therefore, our children are going to notice the patterns of behavior of their parents. They're going to look, how do the parents interact with one another? Let's take one example. Let's get practical. Disagreeing. Okay? Some people think disagreeing is a dirty word. I know I've had students that have come to me and said that, Rabbi, my wife and I, we see eye to eye in everything, we never disagree. That's a bad thing. That's a horrible thing. Why is that horrible? Because it's impossible that you don't disagree with another human being. No two human beings are alike, and therefore it's impossible for you to share every single point of hashkafa, of philosophy, of outlook the same way. It's impossible. Especially between a man and a woman, where men and women are so different. You and your wife are not a brother and a sister. You grew up in different households. You grew up in different communities. You grew up with totally different experiences. There's no way that you don't disagree with your wife. So what does it mean when two people don't disagree? What it means is that they're not sharing with one another. It means that they're not expressing themselves to one another. It could be one of you say, look, it's not worth it. He's going to be unhappy with me if I share this. She's going to think I'm a loser if I go ahead and share this. So, I'll just keep my opinion to myself. So disagreement, if you don't disagree, what that means is that your communication is unhealthy. That's the truth. Disagreeing is totally fine and healthy. However, it's how you disagree that makes a major impact. The way that you have to disagree with your spouse is in a loving and special behavior, a special way. You have to appreciate the other person. There has to be positivity in your disagreement. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. And I can respect someone else's opinion. When my kids see my wife and I disagree, and it's done in a positive way, so then they learn that, first of all, it's okay to disagree. Second of all, it's okay to listen to other people's opinions and not right away become defensive and not right away start yelling and protesting and standing up for what you believe in. You could listen to the other person. You could validate the other person's feelings and opinions. And you could speak in a very nice, calm, and loving way, even though you totally disagree with the other person, with your wife or husband, right? Think about the message that you're giving over to your children when they observe their parents disagreeing in a special way. They'll learn to disagree, they will disagree with other people, and they'll learn how to disagree with those other people based on what they learned from their parents. Okay, let's take another example. Every parent wants their child to respect them. That's the ABCs, one of the 10 commandments. Honor your father and your mother. So we have to teach them to be able to give honor and respect. If I respect my spouse, if I respect his or her opinions, if I respect everything that he or she is doing, so that brings in an idea of respect into the home. And when that character trait of respect is in the air, our children will turn around and will respect us as well. But if my child doesn't see me respect my wife, don't expect him to respect you. I can't expect my child to respect me if he doesn't see me respecting my wife. It's not going to happen. And therefore, the more that I respect my wife, whether it's through disagreeing or in other areas, I will generate respect with my children. They will learn that character trait. They'll learn how to respect other people. Okay? Now let's fast forward to our children's later point in life. Most parents do not think about this, but it's unfortunate. And that is a lot of us, we're here sitting on the call, a lot of us want to get married, right? And we're excited to get married. And everyone wants to know when they're ready to get married. And this goes through everyone's, This goes through everyone's mind. Everyone's always thinking about this in every circle, in every community, from all walks of life. When am I going to be, am I ready? When am I going to be ready? Okay. If you wake up at the age of 20, 21, 22, 27, 30, and you say, you know what? Am I ready to get married? Can someone please give me a checklist of the things that I need to work on now so that I could go ahead and get married? They're in a lot of trouble. Because the preparation for getting married and having an amazing, awesome, successful marriage starts, okay, I'll be generous, at the age of 3. All the way at the beginning of our growth, of our learning, our experience, we are observing people's relationships. We are observing, as a young child, what does it mean to have a good marriage or not to have a good marriage? And who are we looking at first? Obviously, we're looking at our parents to see what is okay, what is not okay, what flies, what doesn't fly, what are you supposed to do, what are you not supposed to do. We're observing, we're trying to learn. And therefore, parents have to realize that the way they interact with one another has a major effect on the future of their children's marriage and relationships. Marriage requires to have a successful marriage. You have to be flexible in a lot of different areas. You might not want to go here for vacation. You might not want to spend your time this way. You might not want to have these guests. You might not want to have these relatives over. But flexibility is required and is crucial. I always like to say that the 4-letter word that is the most important word for marriage is mivater, mem vav taf resh, which means to be relinquished, to give up, to give in. If a person can't do that, a person has to stand his own. Got to be the man, I got to be the woman, I got to show what I believe in. You're going to have a horrible relationship. And therefore, between you and your spouse, you have to show flexibility and show it. Let your kids see that you're being flexible. That's okay. Again, flexible in a loving way, not, oh man, again, I got to do this. Just getting enough. Okay, I'll do it. That's not the way to be flexible. We have to be flexible in an appropriate, respectful way. But when you do that, you teach your kids how to be flexible, caring, affectionate, sympathetic. If you embody those character traits between you and your spouse, So that will trickle down. It will be mushpa, it will be inclined down to your children, and your children will be able to gain from those character traits that you are nurturing on a day-to-day basis. And it's not something that like you sit down at the table one day and say, children, I would like to speak to you today about the importance of flexibility, and tell like some really inspirational story. That's not how it works. What it works is day in and day out. When you show the flexibility, when you show that you're sympathetic and that you're affectionate and that you're caring, when you do that on a day-to-day basis, it penetrates slowly, day after day after day, and your children absorb and observe. They observe and absorb. They observe and then they absorb all of those things that you've been influencing down below. Okay, so this is very important, and a person has a couple have to realize that they're basically setting their kids up for what their future lives are going to look like. And the responsibility is huge, meaning even if you say between you and your wife, okay, yeah, we kid around like that, it's fine, happens, we'll make up, it's okay. Don't forget that when you have children, it's not just as simple as that. Your kids don't see you making up. Your kids don't know if you ever did make up. And therefore, the consistency of dropping that water, letting the water go down onto the kid and letting them feel it and experience it on a day-to-day basis is massive. And it's a tremendous opportunity, of course. You know, with every responsibility comes the opportunity is enormous. And you could give over in your home a lot more than could be taught in the books and the seminars and in school. You have to realize that, especially during these days when a lot of people are around their parents a lot more because people are home. We all have to be extra careful in how we interact with our spouses in order to make sure that the chinuch, that the education of our children is 100%. Okay. Now to speak about a third point. And this is a little more complicated, and it's crucial. We've spoken about in our classes about how marriage is not, the goal of marriage is not to make it work. The goal of marriage is not to be good partners, how you could work things out very well with one another. But the goal of our marriage is to become, nope, let's see those fingers, there you go, to become one, right? Our goal is to become one. Marriage isn't a partnership, it's a merger. We're trying to become one with our wives. And we've discussed all the different skills that are needed in order to get there. But now watch this one, okay? In Parshas Kiseitze, in the book of Devarim, it discusses about the wayward son, the Ben Sorer or Moreh. Okay, we're not going to get into all the details, but it's a child that rebelled. And the child that rebels gets punished. It gets punished by the courts, gets punished by the community. And the Torah says that there's a condition in order to be able to punish this wayward son. What's the condition? One of the conditions is that both the mother and the father have to have the same voice. The literal, simple explanation of the Torah is that they actually have the same pitch. Well, the husband and the wife have to be able to speak the same exact way. And if they don't have the exact same pitch, the exact same tone in their voice, forget it. It doesn't apply, and the wayward son is exempt from any punishment. But Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch says that metaphorically, the Torah is teaching us something very, very different. In fact, the Talmud tells us that there never was such a case of a Ben Sorer or Moreh that ever got punished. The wayward son never happened. And therefore, what's the point of the whole excerpt in the Torah if it's never going to happen? So Rabbi Hirsch says, because it's to teach you lessons in educating your children. And he says that what's this idea of having one voice? It doesn't mean having one pitch, one tone. Like we said, it's almost an impossibility of a man and a woman to have the exact same pitch and tone. It's just not possible. What is it? It's to teach you that when you're educating your child, the message that you give to your kids have to be with one voice. It can't be that the mother is saying one thing and the father is saying one thing, a different thing. Because if the mother's saying one thing and the father's saying something totally different, you'll never be able to punish the kid for taking another direction and being rebellious, because it's not his fault. If he would have gotten unified messaging from his parents, then it wouldn't have happened. But because he was getting different messages from the mother and father, we could say that that is the reason maybe that he went off, and therefore it's his parents' fault. It's not his. Again, children could rebel for a lot of reasons. But if we could see already the parents don't have a voice, then we could at least say that we can't punish the child. I'm not going to punish the child. The parents gave different messaging. Now, where does this come into play? This comes into play every single day, at least in my house. Okay, my child goes ahead and asks my wife, "Can I have some ices? Please, can I have some ices? Can I have some ices?" My wife says, "No, you can't have some ices. Maybe when you finish your homework, you could have some ices. Maybe when you're in pajamas, you could have some ices. Maybe you go ahead and you take a shower, you can have the ices. But right now, you can't have the ices." What is the first thing that the child does? He runs right over to me. "Abba, can I have some ices?" Now, I know that they never asked me for ices first. So I already learned that I say, "Well, what did Ima say?" Okay, and then I find out that there's a whole story involved. But even if I think, no, it's so hot, it's been such a long day, let the kid have the ices. Even if I disagree and I think they should have the ices, no way. I have to have one voice. The message has to be the same. In our educational method, I might disagree with my wife. We might have different ideas of what type of school to go to, what type of friends to hang out with. We have to discuss that behind closed doors. When it comes to educating the message that we're giving to our children, we have to have one voice. And if we don't have that one voice, we're going to send confusing messages to our children, and we won't be able to influence the children in the greatest way. Disciplining is a very big point in this area. If the husband decides to discipline the child, and the wife doesn't agree with how the disciplining is happening, maybe the husband raised his voice a little bit too much, or maybe should have just let this one go. The wife can't stand there while the husband is rebuking the child and say, "No, I think you should leave it alone." That's horrible. Then the child sees, okay, mommy does this and daddy does this. That's bad. She has to be on the team. You have to be on the team with your wife with the disciplining. Later on, you go to your bedroom, close the door, and say, "Look, you know what? You really think we needed to go ahead and discipline? Do you really think that we needed to go ahead and do this?" And talk it out. Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, for the future, we'll do it this way, do it. That's part of becoming one more. We're identifying with each other, we're understanding each other, we're agreeing with plans for the future. Part of being one with our spouse is having one voice. And when you have that one voice, you're able to successfully transmit all messages that the parents want to have and be able to give over that influence. Okay, so to sum up, we spoke about 3 different areas. One is the atmosphere. The atmosphere that a husband and wife create in the house is going to be the bedrock, the foundation for children to be able to be influenced. Both influenced outside, with a clear head, not being distracted by all the things they watch and observe in the house, or being influenced on the inside, wanting to be home, wanting to be in this loving, exciting home so that they can go ahead and be influenced. 2, we spoke about what influence really means. It means our children observing our actions, the way that we disagree, the way that we interact, the way that we respect. And 3, we spoke about how our voice, our educational message to our children have to be one. We have to act like one unit, like our right arm and our left arm. They don't disagree. We have to give over unified messaging. And then hopefully with these tactics that we learned, first of all, our marriages are going to be even better. And second of all, the punch, the influence that we go ahead and give over to our children will be so much more successful and significant. Guys, it's been great learning with you. See you later.